Shalom from Israel, I'm Ariel Ben Abraham. This week we read the last portion of the book of Exodus. Parshat Pekudei means literally, they usually translate it as reckonings, like an accounting, like a listing. In this case, everything is related to the building of the tabernacle, all its parts. So it says something like, these are the reckonings of the tabernacle of testimony, which were recounted at Moses' bidding. The labor of the Levites was under the authority of Itamar, the son of Aharon the Cohen. Bezalel, son of Uri, son of Ur, of the tribe of Judah, did everything that Hashem commanded to Moses. So, then after that in this portion are detailed really all the parts, how much did they cost, everything, all the accounting of the tabernacle. Our sages ask why the word tabernacle is repeated all the time. We know that they're talking about the tabernacle. The Torah is telling us about the tabernacle. Why the repetition and the repetition? Everything that they teach us, the sages, that everything that we see repetition is like some kind of obvious in semantics. It's about making emphasis about something, to emphasize something. Or the meaning or the thing itself. So, in this case, when we're talking about the tabernacle, the insistence, so to speak, of knowing its nature, its parts, its elements, are emphasized because, as we have said many times before, the tabernacle is related to our connection with God, our permanent connection with God. Now, it's interesting because our sages compare the tabernacle, which is a small, wouldn't call it a structure, but just to get the idea, compared to the first temple and the second temple. And interestingly, the first and second were destroyed, and the Mishkan, the tabernacle, there is no account that it was ever destroyed. So it's hidden somewhere, but during the time that it was standing, it was never invaded, it was never desecrated. Now, our sages, they reflect on this. It says, what was missing in the first and second temples? That the Mishkan, being a smaller structure, more simple, didn't happen to it. So it happened to the first and second, but it didn't happen to the tabernacle. And they came to the conclusion that the way the tabernacle was done was completely different than the way the first and second temples were built. They mention, for example, that the first temple was built mostly by foreigners, foreign people who were hired by King Solomon to build the temple, the first temple. And the second, the same story, it was basically financed or allowed or sponsored by a foreign king, Cyrus of Persia. So it's like the participation of Am Israel, of the people of Israel, in the elaboration, in the building of these two temples, the first and the second, were basically not 100%. It was not. In the case of the tabernacle, all the people participated either giving money or building the pieces. It was with Bezalel and his partner Oholiab. So that there were only Jews who were involved in the process. So it's interesting because we're talking about the connection between God and Israel. It had to be made by the Israelis. because it's a connection between God and Israel. So it's pretty obvious, common sense kind of thing, that this connection has to be by us, not by somebody else, or by the sponsorship or the authorization of somebody or some people who are not related to us. Just like in the same way that these foreigners participated in the construction of the first and second temple, these same foreigners in some way had power. The same way they had the power to build it, physically, they also had the physical power to destroy it. Just like it was not really made by us. They were not made by us, as it was the tabernacle. So what is the lesson about that we can learn about all these things that the sages are telling us in the reflections of the difference between the first and second temples and the Mishkan and the tabernacle? That we have to build personally with our own effort, with our own dedication, with our own commitment, with our own love, our connection with God, with our Creator. So this is very, very essential to understand, because if we believe in God and we want to know our Creator and we want to have a relationship with Him, we all want, those who believe, obviously, we have to do everything, every detail. We have to build every detail of that connection by ourselves in the best way we can. So interestingly, the way, as we said before, that is detailed, how Bezalel and Oholiab were building the pieces. This is very interesting. It's like God chose these two gentlemen because they were talented. They have the talent to weave, to knit, to wield, to do everything requested by God to build the temple. It's like we have that in our consciousness. We have Bezalel and we have Oholiab. We do have that, those qualities. So the fact is that we have to look inside of ourselves. What does the handiwork, the crafting and the craving and everything? So these qualities, the qualities that represent, as we said, Moses, Bezalel, or Eliab, everything that we have said that is in the Torah, places, things, people, circumstances, are related to our consciousness. Everything. So this is a place, that place has a meaning in our consciousness. The name of a city, a mountain. So when we see the listing in this portion, Pekudei, of all the elements, all the items requested by God to build our relationship with Him, we have to know what the meaning. And all of them are in us, within us, in our consciousness. So let's try to be aware of that. Like, we really don't need anything alien to us, anything away from us that don't belong to us, really. We really don't need anything exterior from who we are in order to build a connection with God. God doesn't want our money, our possessions. He owns everything. Everything comes from Him. But from what He gives us, we give back to Him. It's not because He needs it. It's to establish a connection. It's a dynamic process. Some people are still getting the old idea, the idea, the old idea, that you have to bring things, acquire things in order to give them to God. Work for them in order to bring them to God. Yes, those are symbolic things, yes. That's a reflection of our own doings in our consciousness, our own having in our consciousness, not outside as material possessions, but as qualities, skills, talents, creative potentials that we want to put at His service, at God's service. And that purpose is goodness. There is no other purpose. So from the goodness God's given us, we give Him back His goodness by doing goodness. So let's understand the tabernacle and its items as elements that are in our consciousness. So when we start seeing, for example, that Bezalel and Oholiab, they had this talent. They were carvers, weavers, embroiderers with turquoise, purple, and scarlet wool, and with linen. These are those kind of colored utensils, like fabrics. Yeah, but at the same time, we have to understand, as we have said before, that all these things, the scarlet wool, the turquoise, and the purple, represent good qualities in our consciousness. In other words, all the elements that are in the Vishkana good, all of them, are fine, well-crafted. So then we have to search in our consciousness, where is the scarlet wool? Where is the purple? And where is the turquoise? Where is the copper? Where is the silver? And where is the gold? It's like we're talking about different qualities here. We're not necessarily talking about things that have all of them an elevated quality. The copper probably doesn't have that thing, or silver, even gold. It's like probably we find in our consciousness qualities or tendencies or feelings, emotions, even thoughts, ideas. No matter what they mean, the idea is to focus and to direct them, to oriented them into the goodness that God wants from us. So he put in our consciousness all these qualities. We want to direct them towards His will, which is goodness. So it's nothing abstract about God's will. There's nothing. Some people say, oh, what is God's will? The commandments. What is the meaning of the commandments? What is the purpose? This is doing because that's something abstract that we don't understand. We have to do it because we're ordered it and commanded to do it. Yes. But our duty is to find what are the meanings of that thing that we are compelled to do, no matter if we understand them or not. But He wants us to understand what are all those things, to find them in our consciousness. It's interesting the order in which they always are repeated: turquoise, purple, and scarlet wool. to what is that primary color called turquoise. What is this combination of the color that we get in turquoise? It's a blue-green. So then, again, we have to get some references that we don't have in the Torah, that actually not all the traditional explanations reveal their meanings. We have to go to the mystic sources. As we have said before in our blog and in these videos, we follow the mystic Hasidic tradition, which is extremely rich. Thank God, to reveal us what are the meanings, the inner meanings of these colors. So usually the blue is always related to spirituality. Something that is, it's like a drive force that pushes us, so to speak, compel us, to like make us move towards God. It's like it's something inherent to us. We are His creatures. We are intrinsically, we're like essentially, fundamentally compelled to look for Him. So that's the blue. It's like it's an inner feeling. So the sky is blue in some way. I mean, we perceive it as blue. So we look up. So we see that there's a quality in blue that is above us, but at the same time it's part of us. That's why we reach out to it. It's ours. In this case, we put turquoise in that blue realm. Then we have the purple, which we know is a combination of red and blue. And then we have red, scarlet. So it's interesting that the purple is like the projection, so to speak, to the material manifestation of the combination of the basic life force, the material life force, which is red. We refer to the blue one as the spiritual. And the blue one, the red one, the physical one, that keeps us alive, this one, the vitality. Right, why the blood is red, which is life, material life. Then in that combination, we realize the purpose of creation in the material world. The combination of the spiritual with the physical. That's the purpose. It's like the balance of the two. So when we think purple, let's never forget what are the primary colors from which it comes. So let's not get purple like, okay, purple, like a unique color. It comes from blue and red. So it's interesting that we have the turquoise that we define here as blue. And then we have the scarlet in the extreme, and in the middle we have the purple. Coincidence? You decide that. You see, here we're not trying to convince here about anything, about anybody, about anything. We just want ourselves to reflect on what our mystic sages say about the inner meanings of the Torah. And then we draw our conclusions. So this is not make people think in a particular way or act in a particular way. It's to make sense, basically. And the only thing that makes sense is goodness. Then we have to pursue goodness, because that's what makes sense. And we pursue goodness because our motivation to pursue goodness is love. And let's continue with the color. So then we have this purple. We have like the spiritual force that you are, that we are, impulses, like moves us. To integrate the life force with that spiritual force. That's the purple. It's interesting because in this mystic traditional teachings that we're talking about, the purple usually are associated even within the Jewish tradition. Also, actually, all traditions probably took it from the Jewish tradition. And the color purple is related to royalty. Royalty. So in Europe, you know, the kings wear, when they were crowned, they have this purple robe, you know. It was like a symbol of royalty, like a superiority, so to speak. But it isn't. I mean, it isn't in the way of superiority, of royalty. You know, the king is above everybody and that kind of thing. It represents accomplishment. That's why in the Kabbalah, the Sphira of Malchut, which is the last one, it represents the manifestation of creation in the material world. That's Malchut. That's the kingdom. That's the royalty. It's like all the things manifest of goodness, the goodness that God wants in His creation. That's Malchut, that's royalty, that's purple. That's the perfect combination that He wants. And by perfect, we're talking about completeness, achieved, realized, manifest. It's quite interesting. So this is not like a color that I'm, you know, like I'm here, I'm the king, you know, I'm royal, and you guys are over there, and I wear purple and you wear blue, or whatever, red or yellow. We have to understand this in our consciousness. The moment that we start separating things like better, superior, that kind of thing, we are basically reflecting the Goim mentality, the mentality of the nations, the non-Jewish mentality. We have to be careful about that. Because we are consciously or subconsciously or unconsciously reproducing the pyramid model. That's the model of the nations. We don't belong to the pyramid model. We belong to the circle model. We have spoken about this before. So the circle is purple. It's a consciousness that we share. It doesn't belong to a particular elite or particular people. We see it. We read this and all these colors are intertwined. They are knitted, intertwined. So the curtains and the rugs, the carpets, you know, all these colors were combined. It's like there is no first, second, third, or anything like that. I mean, there's an order, yes. The Torah is giving us an order to pay attention to. But that doesn't mean that they're superior or lower. They're all combined and balanced and knitted and united for the purpose of connecting our consciousness, our life, our existence with God. It's like there is a way to connect to God. There is a way to build this connection, this tabernacle. And it's through this process that we have mentioned about the colors. Take these elements, these essentials of who we are, this turquoise, this purple, and this scarlet wool, to build that connection. So the purple, so to speak, is like the balance, the one that gives the balance between the two colors, between the blue and the red, like it's in the middle. So we have to honor the scarlet wool. This is because it's not cotton, it's wool. So it's a red that has a particular quality. It's wool. It's made of an animal, a sheep. The sheep represent a sense of orientation, a sense of direction. That's why we need a shepherd, the way sheep. It's qualities that need to be guided for a purpose. And the scarlet is the life force, the vital life force. Interestingly, at the end he said, and the linen, with the linen. So we read, this is verse 23, chapter 38 of the book of Exodus, Parshat Pekudei, talking about Oholiab and Bezalel, and he's talking about Oholiab saying that he's a carver, weaver, and embroiderer with turquoise, purple, and scarlet wool, and with linen. Now, the linen is vegetable. Wool is animal, linen is vegetable. In our tradition, we cannot mix those, wool and linen, together. We can wear those things in our garments together. We cannot mix them. However, in the tabernacle, both the garments of the priests and the fabrics of the tabernacle, they have this combination. So you say, how come that it's a commandment, it's a negative commandment. I mean, you should not mix linen with wool in our garments. Why do we do that in the tabernacle? Why the Kohen, the priest, can do it and we don't? A good question. We're going to answer that. We mentioned in our blog, in one Parsha, either Bereshit, the book of Genesis at the beginning, or in other commentary. We don't know exactly where. We apologize for that, to give you the exact commentary. We talk about the origins of this dispute between linen and wool. This not mix. It comes from Cain and Abel from the beginning, the two children of Adam and Eve. So we see that Abel was offering animals. He was making animal offerings to God. And Cain was making vegetable offerings to God. And God preferred, liked more Abel's sacrifices. Now, the reason of that, our mystic sages, the Hasidic tradition, they say that both, which is something actually obvious that we just need to be aware of, animal and vegetable represents two levels of consciousness, two stages of consciousness, two expressions of consciousness. And it's pretty deep, by the way, so pay attention. It's very, very interesting. You say the vegetables are vegetables. They don't move. It's interesting because clinically, when somebody gets to a point in which they lose consciousness, they become a vegetable. They call it vegetable state. Stillness. Person is still. Cannot move. Like a vegetable. Now we say, yeah, well, vegetables eventually move, they grow and that kind of thing. Yes. But they cannot walk. They cannot move from one point to the other. That's still in the same point, no matter how much they grow. They're unable to move from where they are rooted. So in that way, it means stagnation. The vegetable state. So we are stagnated. We are still, idle. We don't know. We don't go anywhere. So what is that? What doesn't make us go anywhere in our consciousness? Addictions, obsessions, attachments, negative habits. Just keep us there. They don't let us go anywhere but where they are. Yeah. We don't see any progress. We see the same thing every day, every month, every year. And we seem to enjoy it, though. Addicted people enjoy their addictions most of the time. Some of them suffer them. Or there's a point in which they start suffer them. So I want to get out of this. We should try it then. How about cold turkey? Like really leave that thing and start moving. Run away from it. Move out. Move. So in this case, Cain represents the materialistic, sensual consciousness. It stays there all the time. It's not going to go anywhere. It's about possessions, it's about having, it's about feeling, it's about staying in the lower aspects of consciousness. That's linen. So there's a part in consciousness, we're not perfect. There's a part in consciousness that want to stay still, idle. I don't want to go, I'd rather stay home, I want to sleep, I don't want to do this, I don't want to... It's part of our consciousness. We're not perfect here. So when we talk about this, we don't pretend to have an aura of perfection or anything like that. We're discerning, we're reflecting. That's what we're doing. We're trying to reflecting at the highest level possible that we can understand, that we can achieve. In order to try to integrate that awareness, that consciousness, that knowledge in our consciousness, in order to move forward, to get closer to God. By realizing goodness, being goodness, and doing goodness. To move towards that end. That's the animal part. That's Abel's sacrifices, offerings. I'm moving. The guy was moving. Moving towards a purpose. So he was using his sheep and his cattle to offer them to God as the representation of moving towards a purpose. So you have bulls, that with a bull he can plow a field, plant a vine, plant a field, and harvest. So there's a purpose. An ox has a purpose, a sheep has a purpose, moves somewhere. There's a sense of direction that we have to give them. That's able. So it's like, God, I'm here to fulfill you. I mean, I'm your ox, I'm your sheep. Tell me where you want me to go. And I move there. So God said to Abel, I like your sacrifice. You have an idea of what I, says God, want to do in my plan for the material world. Opposite to Cain. So then we have wool, the sheep, the animal consciousness, which is a superior consciousness compared to the vegetable, because of the movement that we have said before. And we have the other one that is the stagnating one. So that's why we have to separate them. We have to build something that moves forward. That's what we have to wear. Not something that stops us to move forward. So if we have wool, we cannot put linen, because linen is like, don't go anywhere, stay here with me. Don't go, don't move. So that's the mystic explanation that our mystic tells us about the mixing of wool and linen. Now, interestingly, in the tabernacle, they are mixed. Why? Because when we are connected with God, all levels of consciousness, the lower levels and the upper levels, are integrated, are knitted, and united for the purpose of His will. Yeah, well, you may say, but we can do that outside the tabernacle. Well, the Torah is telling us, once you are connected with God, you are in the place where you are connected, you are with Him, everything is united. Everything has a function. Everything is harmonically functioned by, for, and through the will of God. When we are outside that connection, out of the tabernacle, we are not connected with God. We have to be careful. We are not connected with God. Therefore, we have to make differences between sacred and profane. And in this case, the sacredness is love. It's goodness. What makes us move? What makes us be generous? What makes us reach out to others? It's about movement. It's a dynamic process. Opposite to the stillness of indifference, indolence, of the stillness, of the idleness, of the linen, of the vegetable state. So let's be aware that everything, again, just to summarize what we have been sharing in this video, pay attention to all these colors, all the items, and try to start finding, so what is a vessel inside of me? What is the lavatory, the copper lavatory? What is the anointing oil? What is the incense, the ketoret? We have, as Jews, we have all these things in our consciousness. It's just a matter of connecting, and we will get the answers. So let's invite ourselves to reflect on, what are these qualities? What are the skills, the talents, the creative potential towards goodness represented by the 12 tribes of Israel? Towards our connection with God. And again, this connection, we build it out of the goodness that we are and the goodness we do. Because that's our purpose in this world. We came from the goodness of God. We're going to the goodness of God. That's our destiny. That's our identity. That's who we are. So we have to repeat in our consciousness the tabernacle, the tabernacle, the tabernacle. Our connection, our connection, our connection. Because from that connection, we realize who we are and our purpose in life. Okay, it was, as usually, an honor to share, to be guided by the goodness of God, by the love of God, to share love's ways and attributes as the material manifestation of God's love for the purpose and for the sake of love. So have a blessed, abundantly blessed the rest of the week. Have an abundantly blessed Shabbat. And see you next week.